TK opened the door and shot him.
As Pac once said, anytime a brother dies or gets locked up, it's always a you-know-who. And TK got the don't bring your girlfriend to work day experience when his ex basically destroyed his entire defense's argument. But it gets even more crazy because TK actually has a hand in this. Let me explain. She told it all. The courtroom was dead silent on April 7th, 2025, day 5 of TK's second murder trial. All eyes locked on Joanna Reyes, TK's former shorty, as she took the stand looking shook. What came next had everybody's jaw on the floor. Homegirl straight up pointed the finger at TK, telling the jury she watched him blast photographer Mark Saldivar outside of Chick-fil-A back in 2017.
TK opened the door and shot him.
That single statement hit the courtroom like a bomb. Reyes was breaking down in tears while snitching on her ex, giving the type of testimony that could send the 24-year-old rapper to prison for life. Already serving 55 years for the 2016 murder of Ethan Walker, TK is facing potentially life without parole if convicted in this second murder case. This ain't just any witness. This the chick who was supposedly riding for him during one of the wildest periods in recent hip-hop history. When TK was on the run from the feds after cutting his ankle monitor, this was his girl. Now she's telling the DA everything while he sits there watching his future crumble.
Joanna Reyes, in tears and in her own words, described to jurors how a day that started as a planned photo shoot turned deadly. Reyes says at the time Tamar McIntyre referred to her as his girlfriend and had asked for help in finding a photographer. She knew Mark Saldivar through Instagram and reached out to him for his help. She picked him up along with McIntyre and his friends Jalen Bell and Jeremiah Rodriguez, all in the same car. Saldivar asked if he could reschedule and if they could give him a ride to North Star Mall, which she agreed. But then she says everything took a turn.
According to Reyes, what started as a photo shoot setup quickly flipped to a robbery gone wrong. She broke down exactly how the situation escalated.
We hit the light at McCullough, and Tamar took out his gun and pointed it at Mark and asked for his bag. Mark refused to give him the bag, so they all started hitting him.
This testimony directly contradicts the narrative some of TK's supporters have pushed, that he wasn't the trigger man in the Saldivar murder. Nah, according to his own girl, he pulled the burner and let it bang, and it gets worse. Reyes described how after the shooting, TK's homie Jalen Bell actually celebrated the murder.
Jalen applauded him and gave him a high five, and they high-fived each other. And Jalen said, "You caught your first body."
Caught your first body. Those words alone paint TK as a killer who was being congratulated for his first murder. That's the type of testimony that sticks with a jury, the kind that's hard for any defense attorney to shake off. For those who've been following TK's story since he first blew up with The Race in 2017, this latest development is just another chapter in what's been one of the wildest sagas in hip-hop. When he dropped that track while on the run, posing next to his own wanted poster and boasting about cutting his ankle monitor, nobody could have predicted how his story would unfold. What makes Reyes' testimony particularly damaging is that it connects directly to that infamous period when TK was already a fugitive. After being implicated in the 2016 home invasion that resulted in Ethan Walker's death, TK had been placed on house arrest but cut off his ankle monitor and fled. It was during this 3-month period as a fugitive that the Saldivar murder allegedly went down. But y'all might be wondering, why would Reyes flip on her man like this? The answer came out during the testimony. She copped a plea deal. In exchange for pointing the finger at TK, she's looking at 10 years probation on a reduced charge of tampering with evidence. Homegirl traded TK's freedom for her own.
Reyes says she was in fear to reach out to police after the shooting because she says McIntyre threatened to kill her and her family. As for the backpack with Saldivar's thing, she said that Bell and McIntyre took off with it. Reyes was offered a plea deal in exchange for her testimony for 10 years probation on the lesser charge of tampering with evidence, which the defense says is a big reason why she said what she said on the stand today.
Reyes claimed during her testimony that she stayed silent for years because TK threatened to kill her and her family if she talked. Whether that's true or just something she's saying to justify snitching, only she knows. But for TK's legal team, this is their angle of attack, painting her as someone who'd say anything to save herself. The defense is pushing the narrative that Reyes' testimony can't be trusted because she's essentially been bribed with leniency. She was facing potential felony murder charges as the driver in a robbery that turned deadly. Now she's looking at probation. That's a hell of an incentive to tell the story the prosecution wants to hear. But even with these credibility issues, Reyes's testimony carries weight because she was there. She wasn't hearing about the murder secondhand. She claims she witnessed it with her own eyes. And the specific details she provided about what happened before, during, and after the shooting give her account the kind of authenticity that's hard to fake. For Tay K, who rejected a plea deal for this case back in February 2024, the decision to roll the dice at trial is looking increasingly risky. With his ex-girlfriend now on record saying she watched him pull the trigger, his path to acquittal has narrowed significantly. As the trial continues, fans and observers have taken to social media to express their thoughts on Reyes's testimony. Some view her as a snake who violated street code, while others argue she's simply telling the truth about a serious crime that took an innocent life. Either way, her words on the stand have potentially sealed Tay K's fate in a case that could determine whether he ever walks free again. The ultimate betrayal. When a street dude gets locked up, there's always that fear in the back of his mind. Who's gonna fold under pressure? Who's gonna stay solid? For Tay K, the answer came in the most painful way possible. The girl he called his shorty, the one who was riding with him during his infamous run from the law, ended up being the one to drop the dime. To understand why Joanna Reyes's testimony cuts so deep, we gotta look at the unique circumstances of their relationship. This wasn't just any romance. It was forged during one of the wildest fugitive sagas in recent hip-hop history, when Tay K was on the run after cutting his ankle monitor. Based on court testimony, Reyes wasn't just Tay K's girl, she was deeply involved in his activities. She admitted to driving the car during the attempted robbery that led to Saldivar's death. She helped set up the meeting with the photographer. She was, by her own admission, a participant, not just a girlfriend on the sideline.
Joanna Reyes, in tears and in her own words, described to jurors how a day that started as a planned photo shoot turned deadly. Reyes says at the time Tamor McIntyre referred to her as his girlfriend and had asked for help in finding a photographer. She knew Mark Saldivar through Instagram and reached out to him for his help. She picked him up along with McIntyre and his friends Jalen Bell and Jeremiah Rodriguez, all in the same car. Saldivar asked if he could reschedule and if they could give him a ride to North Star Mall, which she agreed. But then she says everything took a turn.
This type of involvement created a bond that went beyond normal relationship territory. They weren't just dating, they were co-conspirators in criminal activity. That's why her decision to testify against him represents such a profound betrayal in the eyes of many who follow street code. In that world, the expectation is clear. You don't snitch, period, but especially not on your partner. The understanding is that you take whatever comes your way, even prison time, rather than giving up someone close to you. It's a code that's romanticized in hip-hop culture, but has very real consequences when broken. For Reyes, the choice ultimately came down to self-preservation. Facing potential murder charges herself as an accomplice, she opted for a plea deal that would give her 10 years of probation in exchange for her testimony. In street terms, she chose freedom over loyalty, a decision that's understandable from a human perspective, but unforgivable in the culture Tay K operates in.
Reyes says she was in fear to reach out to police after the shooting because she says McIntyre threatened to kill her and her family. As for the backpack with Saldivar's thing, she said that Bell and McIntyre took off with it. Reyes was offered a plea deal in exchange for her testimony for 10 years probation on the lesser charge of tampering with evidence, which the defense says is a big reason why she said what she said on the stand today.
Reyes attempted to justify her cooperation by claiming that Tay K had threatened her and her family, suggesting she remained silent for years out of fear rather than loyalty. Whether this is true or a convenient narrative to excuse her testimony is impossible to know for sure, but it adds another layer to an already complex situation. Was she a willing participant who later flipped to save herself, or a frightened young woman coerced into silence and now finally speaking her truth? This pattern of betrayal isn't new in Tay K's legal saga. His first case also saw co-defendants turning on each other, with some receiving dramatically lighter sentences in exchange for cooperation. Most notably, a female co-defendant in the Walker murder case received only probation while Tay K got 55 years, despite neither being the shooter.
But here's where it starts to get wickeder. You remember little white girl from earlier? Tay K's lawyer brings up the fact that she got 20 years, which was changed to 10 months probation. His lawyer said, what's the difference between the two of them? In this case, you have two 16-year-olds that didn't anybody. In fact, she planned the whole thing. Technically, he shouldn't get more time, right? The judge said, that doesn't sound fair, but technically this is Texas. 55 years. gosh.
The disparate treatment of co-defendants feeds into a narrative that many of Tay-K's supporters have embraced, that he's been made an example of, while others involved in the same crimes receive more lenient treatment. His uncle expressed this sentiment, suggesting that the Texas justice system is particularly harsh on young black men like his nephew. What makes Reyes's testimony particularly devastating is how detailed and specific it was. She didn't just place Tay-K at the scene, she described him as the trigger man who deliberately shot Saldivar. She recounted the congratulatory high five afterward and the chilling "caught your first body" comment from Bell. These aren't vague accusations, they're precise details that paint Tay-K not just as present, but as the primary actor in the killing.
Jalen applauded him and gave him a high five, and they high-fived each other. And Jalen said he caught your first body.
For Tay-K, who has already spent most of his adult life behind bars, Reyes's testimony represents a potentially fatal blow to his hopes of ever experiencing freedom again. He's been incarcerated since 2017, from age 17 to now 24, during what should have been the prime years of his youth and his career. Despite these circumstances, he's maintained a significant presence in the music world, with nearly 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify. The Race has over 200 million views on YouTube. He's a platinum-selling artist who achieved mainstream success without ever being able to tour or promote his music conventionally. This paradox commercial success while incarcerated adds another layer of tragedy to his story. Some fans still maintain that Tay-K is a generational talent whose potential was cut short, while others acknowledge the severity of his alleged crimes while still appreciating his music. This dichotomy reflects the complicated relationship between art and artist that's often debated in hip-hop culture. As Reyes's testimony concluded and she stepped down from the witness stand, the betrayal was complete. Whether motivated by fear, self-preservation, or a genuine desire for truth, her words have potentially changed the trajectory of Tay-K's life forever. In the street code that values loyalty above all, there's no coming back from that kind of switch-up. But in the legal system, where cooperation is rewarded and silence punished, it's just another day in court. When the system plays favorites. Real talk, the way this case is playing out exposes something many in the hood already know. The criminal justice system ain't the same for everybody. When you look at how Tay-K's being treated compared to Joanna Reyes, it's hard not to see the game being rigged. Let's break it down plain. Reyes straight up admitted in court that she was driving the whip during the robbery that led to Saldivar's death. She admitted setting up the meeting with the photographer. She was there for the whole thing. By any reasonable standard, she's an accomplice to the crime. Yet she's walking away with probation while Tay-K faces life without parole.
Joanna Reyes, in tears and in her own words, described to jurors how a day that started as a planned photo shoot turned deadly. Reyes says at the time Tamor McIntyre referred to her as his girlfriend and had asked for help in finding a photographer. She knew Mark Saldivar through Instagram and reached out to him for his help. She picked him up along with McIntyre and his friends Jalen Bell and Jeremiah Rodriguez, all in the same car. Saldivar asked if he could reschedule and if they could give him a ride to North Star Mall, which she agreed. But then she says everything took a turn.
This ain't new in Tay-K's story. In his first murder case from 2016, we saw the same pattern. While he caught 55 years despite not being the shooter, a white female co-defendant who actually planned the robbery got probation. The actual shooter got 40 years. Make it make sense.
Here's where it starts to get wickeder. You remember little white girl from earlier? Tay-K's lawyer brings up the fact that she got 20 years, which was changed to 10 months probation. His lawyer said, what's the difference between the two of them? In this case, you have two 16-year-olds that didn't anybody. In fact, she planned the whole thing. Technically, he shouldn't get more time, right? The judge said, that does sound fair, but technically this is Texas. 55 years.
Tay-K's uncle wasn't playing when he called out this double standard in an interview.
He was just there. He was a minor there. You know, he was influence heavy. You know, we all know that he didn't pull that trigger. So I think the guy who did got 20 years, and then my nephew got 55 because I think it was the mockery of the judicial system.
Right.
You know, the song he made, and I remember what the judge told him when I was there when he first got here. So it's like I knew why that judge, you know, he felt that way because you know Texas is hard on their criminals, especially African Americans. So I believe if that stuff happened in California, he would have been out already. But in Texas, it's different.
Let's keep it a buck. What we're seeing is how the system rewards snitching over solidarity. Reyes flipped on Tay-K and is walking away with probation. The white girl from the first case cooperated and got probation too. Meanwhile, Tay-K and others who didn't snitch caught decades behind bars. This pattern raises serious questions about how factors like gender, race, and cooperation influence outcomes outcomes in the criminal justice system. Research consistently shows that black defendants receive longer sentences than white defendants for similar crimes. When you add in the dynamics of cooperation versus non-cooperation, the disparities get even wider. During her testimony, Reyes tried to position herself as a victim, claiming she stayed silent for years because Tay K threatened her and her family.
Reyes says she was in fear to reach out to police after the shooting because she says McIntyre threatened to kill her and her family. As for the backpack was Saldivar's thing, she said that Bell and McIntyre took off with it. Reyes was offered a plea deal in exchange for her testimony for 10 years probation on the lesser charge of tampering with evidence, which the defense says is a big reason why she said what she said on the stand today.
This narrative of female vulnerability versus male aggression plays into stereotypes that often influence how the legal system treats different defendants. Women, especially those who present themselves as afraid or coerced, tend to receive more lenient treatment than men accused of similar crimes. The prosecution clearly values Reyes' testimony because it directly places Tay K at the center of the crime as the shooter. Her account of what happened is damning.
We hit the light at McCullough, and Tamar took out his gun and pointed it at Mark and asked for his bag. Mark refused to give him the bag, so they all started hitting him.
She even described the moment of the shooting and the disturbing celebration afterward.
Jalen applauded him and gave him a high five, and they high-fived each other. And Jalen said he caught your first body.
This testimony, if believed by the jury, essentially seals Tay K's fate. It directly contradicts any defense narrative that he wasn't the shooter or was a minor participant. And because it comes from someone who was present and had a relationship with him, it carries significant weight. For Tay K's defense team, challenging Reyes' credibility is now their primary strategy. They'll emphasize the plea deal she received, suggesting her testimony was purchased rather than freely given. They'll point to the years of silence followed by sudden cooperation when it benefited her, and they'll question whether someone facing serious charges herself can be trusted to tell the truth about others. But even with these credibility issues, eyewitness testimony from a close associate is difficult to overcome. Juries tend to find such testimony compelling, especially when it includes specific, credible-sounding details that would be difficult to fabricate. As this trial unfolds, it lays bare the cruel calculus of the criminal justice system. Those who cooperate early and completely often walk away with minimal consequences, while those who maintain silence or loyalty face the full weight of punishment. It's a system that effectively rewards betrayal and punishes solidarity. For many young people in the streets, this reality creates an impossible choice. Adhere to the code you were raised with and face decades behind bars, or violate those principles and potentially walk free. It's a choice that disproportionately falls on the shoulders of those from disadvantaged backgrounds who lack the resources to fight charges effectively without cooperation. Tay K's story, from his troubled childhood to his rise as a rapper to his current legal predicament, encapsulates many of the systemic issues that plague the criminal justice system in America. Born into instability, with both parents involved in gang life and time spent in foster care, he never had the foundation that more privileged kids take for granted. His musical talent offered a potential path out, but by the time he found success with The Race, he was already embroiled in serious criminal charges. The viral success of that song, which reached #44 on Billboard and went platinum while he was a fugitive, paradoxically may have contributed to his harsh treatment in the legal system. The judge in his first case explicitly expressed displeasure with the Free Tay K movement that had sprung up around him. Now, with his ex-girlfriend's testimony potentially sealing his fate in this second murder case, Tay K faces the prospect of never experiencing freedom again. At 24, having spent his entire adult life behind bars, he stands as a cautionary tale about the consequences of crime, the dynamics of betrayal, and a system that often seems designed to maximize incarceration rather than rehabilitation. As one ex-user put it, the most unfortunate part about all of this is if you listen to that Santana world, Tay K had immense rap talent and energy, but for some reason he felt he actually needed to hurt and murder people. Sad story. Whether that talent will ever have another chance to flourish now seems to depend largely on whether a jury believes Joanna Reyes' account of what happened on that fateful day in 2017. Her words, spoken through tears on the witness stand, may well determine whether Tay K ever walks free again or remains, as the title of his famous song suggests, on the race for the rest of his life. Click the video on your screen for another story like this one.